Hi, I'm Scott Newnham, CEO of Audio Advice. This video is an overview and comparison of MartinLogan's Masterpiece speaker series, which in my mind is one of the coolest and best sounding line of speakers that exists. To give you a sense of how much I believe in these speakers, I'm standing right now in my own home office with MartinLogan ESL 13A speakers. As you might imagine, I test lots of speakers and have tried many different ones, and I can tell you these are just amazing and have lit up my own office in a way no other speaker has at any price point I've tried. If you want to read our full review on the Masterpiece series, head over to audioadvice.com by clicking on our link in the description. Along with this review, you'll find hundreds of other reviews, comparisons, buyer's guides, and much more. Now let's get started. For those of you who may not be familiar with electrostatic speakers, they've actually been around for over 65 years when the quad electrostatic was introduced. Unlike conventional speakers, in simple terms, electrostatics use a super thin diaphragm that sits in between charged panels that cause the diaphragm to move. The advantages are the diaphragm is far lighter than any other type of speaker material, and you have a whole lot more surface area to work with. The disadvantages historically were that electrostatic panels could not really produce deep bass, and most designs had limited dispersion, which historically made these speakers better for dedicated listening rooms where you can sit right in the sweet spot. Also, all of the early electrostatics were very limited in the volume output they could produce. For decades, though, audiophiles have loved the sound of electrostatic speakers, as they have this sense of pure, effortless sound with zero coloration from a speaker cabinet or the speaker driver itself. To me, it's most pronounced listening to acoustic music. Hearing guitar strings and vocals on these electrostatics is like sitting in a private live concert with the artist. Over the years, MartinLogan has become the clear leader in electrostatic speaker technology, with constant innovations in their speaker technology to overcome the inherent limitations or disadvantages of electrostatic speakers. Their new Masterpiece lineup can produce deep bass, plays to concert levels, and no longer has that one sweet spot where you must sit for great sound. They truly are an audio masterpiece. I thought it would be fun to go over the best sellers in their Masterpiece series. Today I will go over the Renaissance ESL 15A, the Expression ESL 13A, the Impression ESL 11A, and the Classic ESL 9. First, I'm going to discuss the technology they all share and then get into the differences between the models and give you some insight as to which might work best for your system. As I said earlier, electrostatics have a large panel, so if you are looking for a small bookshelf or desktop speaker, you can probably stop watching. However, if you want to learn about some of the best sound on the planet, sit back and enjoy. The magic of these electrostatic speakers is that there is a super thin transparent film suspended between two charged perforated metal stators. An amplifier signal, when applied to the stators, creates a strong electrostatic field that moves the diaphragm back and forth, exciting the air and transmitting the sound. You can imagine that this gives them an incredible advantage in speed and accuracy of starting and stopping versus large cone drivers, with the transducer changing direction more than 40,000 times per second. However, there are two inherent challenges that MartinLogan had to solve in electrostatics to achieve the greatness these speakers have today. The first was that electrostatic speakers don't naturally produce low bass, and the second is that they were not as forgiving when you were off axis and not in the sweet spot. When Gail Sanders and Ron Sutherland of MartinLogan were doing their early experiments on electrostatic panels, they discovered a way to produce deeper bass and more output than any previous electrostatics. The MartinLogan team also figured out how to integrate bass drivers into the speakers with very precise crossovers that blend the advantages of electrostatics in the mid to high frequencies with the advantages of traditional subwoofer drivers. This combination of taking the best of each technology is one thing that sets the Masterpiece speakers apart from their competition. It was late one night that Gail and Ron came up with the idea of how to address the off-axis issue of electrostatics, which was to produce a horizontally curved panel. There are a host of advantages to this, but most importantly, it allows a broader sweet spot and reduces the natural blurring effect of the room on the listening experience. MartinLogan's curvilinear line source electrostatic panel is gently curved, providing both a sonic and aesthetic advantage. MicroPerf stator technology has been developed over time, which allows the new CLS XStat panels to have almost twice the exposed electrostatic surface producing sound as other electrostatic panels of the same size. MartinLogan developed what they call clear spar spacers that keep a perfect level of tension on the diaphragm. Not only does this design yield great results, it also makes the MartinLogan panel see-through, which adds to their allure. Designing a great curved panel in the lab with ideal characteristics does you no good if you cannot mount it in such a way that the mounting does not interfere with the sound. The first MartinLogans had pretty large frames around the panels, but as time and engineering moved on, they've developed a way to hold the panel that is almost invisible, called their airframe blade construction. The frame itself is made from an aerospace-grade extruded aluminum alloy. On all of the Masterpiece models, you'll notice the frame is very narrow in the front, while the sides taper to almost a triangular point on the rear. The airframe blade design enables better imaging, more low-level details, and increased efficiency of the panel, as it is held much more rigidly by this new frame design. This blade design also contributes to the unique and beautiful look of these speakers. Powered force forward bass technology uses two separate woofer enclosures to produce substantial bass energy. By using advanced crossover techniques with phase time aligned woofers, you get super accurate and articulate bass from their woofer system. The hidden gem in any speaker is the crossover. This is the group of electronic components that direct signal flow inside a speaker to its different drivers. When you get the crossover right, the blend between drivers in a speaker is seamless, and you get a great sense of effortlessness and transparency from the speaker. One huge advantage of these speakers is that they only have one crossover used to separate only the woofer for low bass from the electrostatic, which can produce both the mids and highs. This eliminates the need for an additional crossover between mids and highs required by most traditional speakers, which provides for more seamless sound from the one electrostatic transducer. Now let's have a look at each of the models, starting with the classic ESL9. The smallest model in the Masterpiece lineup still stands at 5 feet tall and a little over 2 feet deep, which will fill up most small to medium-sized rooms with amazingly fast sound. The ESL9 uses a 44-inch by 9.2-inch panel, producing 405 square inches of radiating surface area. The bottom of the cabinet houses two 8-inch cast basket laser-designed aluminum cone woofers using their powered force forward bass technology. The two woofers are capable of producing bass down to 34 Hz, which is very respectable for a dual 8-inch design and is also super fast. We find they sound the best with the front of the speaker roughly 3 feet off the back wall and slightly angled in towards your listening position. Since they're fairly sensitive at 90 dB, we suggest you think about better power in an amplifier over more power. MartinLogans are all very revealing and will easily show off the advantages of a better amplifier. They can also run quite well on better home theater receivers if you are thinking about a complete MartinLogan home theater system. So I jumped over here into our Raleigh showroom just to show you in our own experience center where we've got multiple speakers set up. These are the ESL 11As, which is a step up from the classic 9s. So you can see they're just gorgeous speakers. And so now I'm just going to walk you through a little bit about what happens when you step up from the 9s to the 11As. But again, a gorgeous speaker. When you take the jump to the Impression ESL 11A, you now get an onboard high-performance sub-amplification. So you run speaker cable from your amplifier to the speaker, but the crossover will pull out the bass and play it through the woofers with its own onboard amplification. This means you do need to provide power to each speaker. So if you have a room where you simply cannot get power to your speakers, these high-performance speakers are not going to be the right solution for you. However, if you can get power to them, this gets you something in addition to the matched amplifier itself. You get what I feel is a great technology developed by MartinLogan's sister company, Anthem. Anthem room correction is one of the best methods we have ever encountered for fixing issues caused by the room. Starting with the ESL 11A and up, all of the Masterpiece models have Anthem room correction, or ARC, on board for the woofers. This advantage of having ARC integrated into these speakers should not be underestimated. No room is perfect, and having this advanced technology to calibrate the speaker to the room dramatically improves the final experience. For example, in my home office here, I have a bass mode at around 60 Hertz that ARC was able to adjust for so that it does not overpower the rest of the frequencies in this office. If you decide to purchase these speakers, we've produced a full speaker setup video for these speakers and an ARC calibration video that we send to all Audio Advice customers that should make the process super straightforward for you. Just remember, you do need to purchase the PBK mic kit to do the ARC calibration. If you don't know where to get it or you got any questions, go over to audioadvice.com. We have the PBK kits. Happy to sell it to you and also answer any questions that you've got. With the ESL 11A, you also get a larger panel that is 44 inches by 11 inches with about 20% more surface area than the ESL 9 at 484 square inches. The speaker itself is only about 1 inch taller than the ESL 9, but about 2 inches deeper. With the onboard amp and slightly bigger cabinet to match with the larger panel, bass drops down deeper in the ESL 11A to 29 Hertz, and you get a sensitivity bump up to 91 dB, which is pretty amazing for an electrostatic speaker, which are notoriously inefficient. Moving to the rear of the speaker, starting with the ESL 11A, you get some legendary WBT binding posts. This is a specialty company known for their incredible connectors. You'll be able to use even the most stout speaker wire connection with the WBT plugs as well. You can see in my own setup that I have really high performance reference cables securely connected to these binding posts. The rear of the speaker also has a bass level control knob and a mid-bass level switch to allow you to fine-tune to your room. I cover this in more detail in the Audio Advice setup video. With its built-in amp, the ESL 11A can fill up just about any size room except for a very large one with big sound. Voices will float seamlessly right in front of you while you feel super fast, impactful bass. Their over 5-foot size also means the musical soundstage in front of you is almost lifelike in size. The ESL 11A gives you all of the best of the Masterpiece series has to offer in their most affordable and compact package, and for most music lovers will be the best price performance for the money in the entire line. If you take all of the tech in the ESL 11A and make it bigger, that sums up to the ESL 13A, which is what I've got here in my office. You move up to a larger panel that is 13 inches wide by 44 inches tall, producing 572 square inches of radiating area. The woofers in their cabinet get bigger to match up to the larger panel with two 10-inch cast basket drivers and a larger amplifier to drive them in each speaker. They're physically about 2 inches wider, about 1 inch taller than the ESL 11As. For me, these are the perfect size for ultra high performance listening without requiring an additional sub. If you take a look at my setup, you'll see I'm using my Mac to stream music through a Chord Hugo 2, which is an incredible little desktop DAC that also serves as a preamp in my system, allowing me to toggle between headphones and the MartinLogans. This then runs to a 300 watt per channel amp and into the speakers. Because the 13As have 4 10-inch subs reaching down to 24 Hertz, I don't need extra subs for this setup. And the panels are just the right size to give me the great imaging, but also easily fill my room at 91 dB efficiency. You'll notice in my setup that I've got them pretty far off the front wall and from the sides. In theory, you'll want to place the MartinLogans at least as far off the front wall as the size of the sub in the speaker. So in this case, 10 inches, 8 inches for the 11A and 9s, and 12 inches for the 15s. However, you can pull them out even further like I have in this room to get a more near-field listening experience that is just amazing. You'll also want them at least 2 to 2.5 feet off the side walls. In my case, I've got them over 3 feet off the side walls. By way of perspective, this room is a little over 20 feet deep, and I've got about 15 feet wide and just under 10 feet high to just give you a perspective. And these things rock this room. If you want to learn more about setup and placement for these speakers, reach out to us at audioadvice.com to get a copy of the video I've made on how to best set up and place the Masterpiece series that goes to all purchasers from Audio Advice. When you think of most masterpieces from the art world, you think of the Renaissance time period. I love the name MartinLogan chose for their top-of-the-line Masterpiece series speaker. The Renaissance ESL 15 stands at an impressive almost 6 feet tall, and with the larger base enclosures are about 30 inches deep. The panel goes to 46 inches by 15 inches, producing 690 square inches of radiating surface area. To match the 15-inch wide panel, MartinLogan uses two 12-inch aluminum cone woofers with an amp capable of 1,000 watts peak for each independent bass driver. Sensitivity jumps up to 92 dB and you get deep bass down to 22 hertz. That is spectacular. The Renaissance makes you feel like performers are literally standing in front of you. While it's not quite as big a sound as their $100,000 Neolith speaker, it is pretty darn close, and a quarter of the price is pretty amazing. The larger panel is even more effortless than the 13A, which lets you hear even more micro details of the music. These 140-pound large panels will need to be at least about 12 inches off the back wall and slightly towed in towards your listening area. This is an electrostatic that can give you the full dynamic impact of a symphony orchestra, yet reveal the slight drawl of breath as a singer pauses, or the subtle brush strokes of a cymbal with a realism that makes you think the concert is in your room. Are they expensive? Yes. And do they deliver unbelievable sound? You betcha. For those with essentially unlimited budgets, MartinLogan also makes the CLX Art, which sells for $30,000, and the Neolith, which is a $100,000 pair. These are obviously state-of-the-art speakers that were built to be the best speakers possible with no budget constraints. We've demoed these speakers at Audio Advice during our Music Matters events with lines of people coming to hear them. The pure, clean sound of electrostatic speakers has been the dream of music lovers for decades. The MartinLogan Masterpiece series represents the pinnacle of this type of speaker system. The combination of all of their 3 decades of audio engineering results in a line of products whose performance is even better than the sum of all their high tech. They certainly achieved MartinLogan's goal of truth in sound. MartinLogan speakers are owned by many of the experts here at Audio Advice, giving our team the hands-on experience to help you find the best match for your system, room, and budget. While the larger models in the line do need a pretty good sized room to perform their best, we can work with you to see which model will fit best in your room and your situation. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss the latest home audio and home theater content. We'll see you next time.